Good morning, everyone. Like Chris said, I'm Daniel Kolominsky. I'm a senior planner in community planning within the Development Review Division. In full disclosure, I am not running for any political office. I simply work for the City of Toronto as a planner. It's great to be here for a second year in a row, speaking to everyone in the crowd today. And it's also great to follow Brad and Eric, who really set the table with how important government regulation planning policy is when it comes to Toronto residents and builders in the City of Toronto. Today, I'd like to speak a little bit more at a higher level about the planning policy and the evolution of planning in Toronto over the last number of years. I'm also going to speak a little bit about the uptake of missing middle development citywide. And I'm also going to try and paint the picture as to why there are still a lot of residents in the City of Toronto who are grappling with the amount of change that has happened over the last number of years. This is a photo that the planning department often uses in our presentations when talking about the missing middle. This really shows the stark divide between our main streets, our downtown, our avenues, which really, this is the Yonge Street corridor, the spine of the city where you could see peaks of high density development in particular areas of the city. And if you go beyond those areas, you could really see how the city drops off in what are stable, low-rise residential neighborhoods. For a very long time, Toronto's had a very intentional form of planning and development to direct high density to these areas and keep low-rise neighborhoods stable and relatively static from a policy and zoning perspective. But over the last number of years, there has been an immense amount of change to open up the neighborhoods, to see how there's opportunities and find opportunities for more housing options, to add low-rise infill, more intensification into these neighborhoods so that we can add more housing stock beyond just towers and mid-rise buildings. And it is timely with the state of the market right now. A lot of these buildings are not working. And as Brad already alluded to, the missing middle is sort of leading the charge right now. And I'm going to get into a little bit about maybe why that is. So there has been an immense amount of change. I could probably go all day talking about the number of changes that have happened over the course of the last 8 to 10 years. If we think back to 2017, before expanding housing options in neighborhoods or EHON started, about 70% of Toronto's residential areas were zoned to only permit detached dwellings and secondary suites. So the max you could get on one residential lot, was 1 unit and a secondary suite. Since that time, the city has layered on over the years additional housing typologies within low-rise neighborhoods and expanded the number of building types within that 70% number across Toronto. So we started with laneway suites, moved into garden suites, then multiplexes, plus the garden suite or the laneway suite in the back, which coined the popular term 4+1. Since then, we moved into major streets, where you are now permitted to build up to 4-story townhouses or 6-story apartment buildings with 60 units, plus a garden suite in the back. And most recently, 6plexes, which were limited to just Toronto and East York District and not citywide. And then if we look at what's to come, our major transit station areas may be one of the most transformational zoning changes that this city has ever seen, where city staff are endeavoring to bring forward zoning to implement provincial changes in these major transit station areas to permit, as of right, towers on our main streets in mixed-use areas, but within neighborhoods, as much as 4-story and even 6-story residential buildings, multiplexes or apartments. This is very close. Let that sink in. Towers as of right. Something completely different than that the city has ever seen. All the while, there's been a lot of other additional policy, zoning, process, and fee changes that city staff, members of the public, and builders are also having to deal with. The provincial government has moved many bills. Bill 23, which removed the third-party appeal rights from residents who may want to try and intervene with a minor variance application or a rezoning application. Bill 109, that turned the planning department upside down when we were mandated to have to approve or make a decision on development applications within 90 days or even 60 days. And more recently, within Bill 17, providing direct, immediate relief on building setbacks of all buildings across the city. The City of Toronto has also come forward with a lot of different zoning changes, fee changes. For example, in 2022, we removed the requirement for any residential parking spaces within new development. We moved into development charge relief, first starting at multiplexes with 4 units not being subject to development charges. Recently moved up to 6 units in a residential building. And more recently, allowing small-scale retail opportunities within neighborhoods in the downtown Toronto and East York district and along major streets. So obviously there has been an immense amount of change, and people are constantly needing to adjust to that. And we're doing what we can to educate our residents, builders, but it can be challenging with this amount of change in such a short period of time. I'm going to move into speaking a little bit and giving some numbers to all of the changes that we've seen from a missing middle perspective. So this chart is meant to demonstrate the different categories or the housing typologies that have been added into our neighborhoods. We're seeing from a total perspective of net new units and total units. Uptake for these housing typologies has been increasing steadily every single year. We've seen over 6,000 net new units within laneway suites, garden suites, and multiplexes combined for almost a total of 8,000 units. We're also seeing larger units within these buildings. These aren't micro units, small studios. These are livable units for families, 2-3 bedroom units, which is really an outcome that city staff were striving for when originally bringing forward the expanding housing options in neighborhoods initiative. There's still a concentration more or less focused within the former City of Toronto and Toronto and East York District, but we are definitely seeing more uptake occurring across outer wards from the downtown core. And I personally, when looking at this, I know originally there was a little bit of a narrative out there saying that the missing middle is really, if you add up all of the units, all it just amounts to is a couple mid-rise buildings or 1 or 2 towers. But if you look at the amount of units that we really are seeing now over time, I do think, and these numbers are continuing to grow, we're not seeing this being the equivalent to 1 or 2 mid-rise buildings. This is a movement, and it is as a result of good progressive policy and zoning and builders adapting and making things work, and development charge relief too. So I wanted to speak about the Committee of Adjustment. Many people in the room might be familiar with what the Committee of Adjustment is, so I'm just more or less going to focus on the stats that we're seeing with regard to missing middle typologies that are coming to the committee. On average, we are seeing about 85% of these missing middle applications being approved. For the most part, side yard setbacks, soft landscaping, building heights are the most common variances. Angular planes related to garden suites and laneway suites, and lot coverage. But recently, as a result of provincial direction, we've updated our bylaws to remove angular plane requirements and lot coverage has been increased for these missing middle typologies if you have 3 or more units on a lot to 45%. So those variances will likely decrease. We are moving faster, hearings are getting scheduled quicker, and staff are monitoring the results of EHON outcomes at the Committee of Adjustment. So that's not the end. It's close to the end of the presentation, but there's still more that city staff are doing. I'm going to cover a few key highlights. So I focused this into a few different buckets. From a development review perspective, at the mayor's direction, development review is reviewing the Committee of Adjustment top to bottom, looking at the efficiency, commenting practices from commenting partners, the whole thing. Development review is also looking at site plan control reform. I believe there will be reports coming forward to Planning and Housing Committee within the next month or two, so keep an eye out, and you could see a lot of the recommendations coming from city staff on those pieces. Moving into Toronto buildings, within the next couple of months, we will likely see pre-approved multiplex building permit designs. There's also now a lot more of a push towards exploring the use of AI within building permit reviews. And also at the direction of the mayor, we are looking more at the Toronto water connection process and the costs associated with that, because we're hearing a lot from builders that things vary all the time, and we'd like to see more consistency when it comes to that. And from a city planning perspective, like I'd mentioned, the major transit station zoning implementation is huge. We expect to see a report come forward before council goes on break in June. The monitoring continues for multiplexes in major streets, and there's a lot more that's being done for mid-rise building. I probably won't speak too much about it. There's going to be some other conversations from other speakers later today. All that to say, there's a lot happening. And one thing that I'd like to leave everyone in the audience with before I wrap up is just the fact that the missing middle conversation doesn't start and stop at this conference. It continues outside of this building. It happens with friends, families, your local councilor, neighbors. All of these changes that have happened over the last number of years are difficult for people to digest, and we need to socialize them. If you've built a multiplex, maybe consider offering a tour of what the multiplex looks like, what the units are like, how it fits into the neighborhood. That would be my ask to everyone here. But with that, I'd like to say thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I look forward to meeting many of you throughout the rest of the day. Thank you.